I'm Vivian. I'm 38, a bookkeeper, and a single mom to a 15-year-old named Evan. I'm the older daughter. My sister Maya is 2 years younger, married to Dan, and has twin girls who are 12 and a boy who's 9. Our mom, Ruth, is the axis of the family. If there's a family group chat, she runs it. If there's a family plan, she announces it. We were at her house for Sunday dinner. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes. Evan was picking at peas, and I was scanning the mail pile on the counter because Mom always drops bills there like a still life. Snorts. The news was on low in the background. Some segment about college costs. Mom said, like she was reading a weather report, "We've decided we're funding college for Maya's kids. We'll get their 529S topped off early. It's smarter compounding." I looked up. "We," she smiled. "The family, you know. We'll make it work." Evan blinked at me. Maya brushed hair off her daughter's forehead like this was normal. "And Evan?" I asked. My voice was even, but my neck got hot. Mom shrugged. "There's YouTube. There are cheaper options. He's practical, right? He'll figure it out." Evan stared at his plate. I heard my own heartbeat in my ears. I tried to swallow, and it felt like swallowing a stone. It's not like this came out of nowhere. In our family, there's always been a lane. I was the reliable one, the helper. At 16, I had a job and paid my phone bill. Maya got to find herself and took a gap year that stretched into 3, while Mom paid her rent just until she gets stable. Dad passed away 3 years ago. He left a small life insurance payout and a note about helping the grandkids scribbled on a yellow legal pad. We all read it at the kitchen table. Mom decided to be the steward. "We'll make a family plan," she said, putting her hand on that legal pad like it was the Constitution. I asked what that meant. She said we'd prioritize need. Maya's twins had a reading tutor, braces, dance lessons. Their expenses always seemed urgent. Evan's expenses were framed as nice-to-haves. When I asked if the fund could cover Evan's AP exam fees, Mom said, "He's so smart. He'll pass without paying for the test." I make decent money, but it's not fantasy money. Rent, car insurance, orthodontist, yes. Evan needs braces, 2 groceries, uniforms for his robotics club. I keep a spreadsheet. I don't buy lattes. I don't go on vacations. Early on, when my credit was shaky, Mom helped me open a savings account at her credit union. She added me to her branch so I could get a better rate, and she kept herself and Maya as authorized eyes. It was a weird arrangement, but I was 22 and just happy to have a safe place to build savings. Over time, I earmarked that account as Evan's future. I told my mom that was the plan. She nodded like she approved. Little withdrawals started. "We'll put it back," Mom would say. "The twins' summer camp deposit is due." Or, "Dan's truck needs a fix. He needs that for work. Small amounts. Like $150 here, $300 there." Sometimes she'd tell me after. Sometimes not until I saw the transfer and asked. I'd get a "we're family" text and an explanation with too many emojis. I told myself it was fine. I told myself they'd make it right later. I told myself we were a team, and teams share. I said nothing when birthdays for the twins got iPads and Evan got a hoodie. I said nothing when Mom cooed over a new ballet recital and then told Evan, "Community college is really great. Lots of kids go." Last year, Evan joined the robotics team, and he lit up. He ran our ancient printer, making parts lists. He watched videos, yes, on YouTube, but also took notes, built prototypes with cereal boxes. He stayed up late with his math homework because he was motivated for the first time in a way that didn't involve gaming. He asked me how 529S worked, and I told him. And then I told him the truth. "We've got some money saved. It's not a lot. We're doing scholarships. We're going to be okay." Mom heard him talking about college once and said he should consider a trade. "Plumbers make good money," Dan chimed in. "He can start at my shop at 18. Evan was polite, but I saw his face fall. 2 weeks before the Sunday dinner, I had asked Mom if the family fund could match what I'd put in his savings this year. I showed her my spreadsheet. She said, "Let's get Maya's kids squared away first. They're girls. They need more support." I sat with that sentence for days. Girls need more support. Boys can fend for themselves. Also, Maya's kids have 2 parents and a 2-income household, if Dan's business is counted. My kid has me. At the dinner, when Mom said, "We're funding college for Maya's kids," something in my chest tightened. Evan is not a line item. He's my child. He heard her say it. He's not dumb. "Why are you deciding this without me?" I asked. Mom sighed. "Vivian, it's not without you. You're included. You're such a good saver. You're organized. You don't need as much help," Maya added. "You know how hard it's been for us." She gestured vaguely at nothing. "Evan deserves a chance," I said. Mom smiled like I was being dramatic. "He will have one. College is not the only path. There's Khan Academy. YouTube is free. Entrepreneurial spirit." Evan put his fork down. He didn't say anything in front of them, but his shoulders curled in. In the car on the way home, he was quiet. We drove 3 blocks before he said, "So Grandma thinks I'm a joke?" His voice cracked on, "Joke." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "No," I said, and then I corrected myself. "She's wrong. She's wrong about a lot of things." He stared out the window. "It's fine. I'll figure it out. I can get a job. I'll watch videos." My stomach hurt. I wanted to pull over and scream into the night, but I just said, "You are not a YouTube plan. You are a person. We'll handle this." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there and watched the shadows on the wall, and cataloged every little withdrawal from that account, every "we'll put it back" text, every time I'd been told I was so good at managing so I could afford to subsidize other people's choices. I thought about Evan's face. I thought about Dad's note, and the way Mom had placed her hand on it like it gave her sole authority. My brain got very quiet and very clear. I got up. I made tea. I pulled out my file folder for Evan College. I logged into the credit union. The account had my name, and as authorized, Mom and Maya. It wasn't technically a UTMA yet. I had been telling myself I had to formalize it soon. Soon? Stretched for years. I opened a new account at my bank, under a proper UTMA, with me as custodian and Evan as beneficiary. I moved the amount that was Evan's fund, leaving $200 in the old account to keep it open. I took Mom and Maya off, as authorized users. I changed the email, the alerts, the security questions. I ordered a new debit card to my address only. I updated my 401k beneficiary to be a trust for Evan. I sat there and read everything twice. The house was silent except for the hum of the fridge. My hand shook, but it was a steady shake, a chosen shake. When he woke up for school, Evan came into the kitchen in socks, hair sticking up. He sniffed the air and said, "Did you make tea at 3 a.m.? I smiled. "Couldn't sleep." He nodded like he understood. He packed his bag. Before he left, he stood at the door and said, "Did I mess up with Grandma?" "You did nothing wrong," I said. "I am changing how we do things. That's adult stuff. You just be a kid and go to school." He hugged me, that teenage, awkward, heavy hug that still makes him feel small in my arms. The next morning, my phone lit up at 7:12 a.m. with a text from Mom. "Why did the bank say we have 0 access?" I stared at it. I felt heat rise up my neck again, but this time it didn't burn. It warmed me. I set the phone down. I made coffee. I took a sip. I picked the phone back up and typed, "Because it's Evan's account, you don't need access." The call came immediately. Mom didn't say hello. "What did you do?" "I put Evan's money into a proper custodial account," I said. "I removed you as authorized. That's the whole thing." "You can't do that," she said. Her voice had that high, tight sound that means she's not in control. "I can," I said. "It's my account. It's my kid. It's his money." "We had a plan," she snapped. "You had a plan where my son is YouTube and yours is 529. I'm not in that plan." Maya called while I was still on the phone with Mom. then Dan. I declined both. Mom started crying. You're making this difficult for all of us. The twins' tuition deposit is due Friday. We were going to float it just for a week. You know that we always do this. You know how to move money around. I let that sit. You were going to float it out of my son's savings. Family helps family, Mom said. We put it back. No, I said. My voice was calm. I've been helping. That's over. Maya started texting a long, windy message. You're punishing my children. They're kids. How can you sleep? We're literally counting pennies. Dan's truck. And then a second message with a screenshot of the bank error. 0 access. She circled it like I hadn't seen. Dan called again and left a voicemail. This is petty. You're being selfish. Maya's crying. Your mom is a wreck. I texted back to Maya. Stop trying to log into my son's account. This is not yours. She replied, You always thought you were better because you have a boring job. I stared at the wall and took a breath. Inside, I was 11 again, sweeping after dinner while Maya watched TV. Sighs. But I was also 38, holding a phone and the keys to my kid's future. At 12:30 p.m., Mom called again. Her voice was softer. Vivian, please. I sounded harsh earlier. You know I love Evan. Do you? I asked. He heard you call his future YouTube. I didn't mean it like that. You know how kids are. Some are academic, some are hands-on. He's both. He's a person. We're all stressed. Just give access back for a week so we can make these payments. I'm begging you. I looked at the plant by the window. I looked at the spreadsheet open on my computer. I thought about Evan's cereal box prototypes. I said, No. If you need money, you need your own plan. Silence. Then she said, You're going to regret cutting your family out. I'm cutting you out of my bank account. If you want to see Evan, you can. If you want to talk, we can. But not about this. We're done sharing money. She started crying again. The kind of cry where you can hear the breath hitch. I didn't think you'd do this. I didn't think you'd say what you said at dinner, I replied. She hung up. The group chat lit up like a Christmas tree. Aunt Celia. What happened? Mom. Vivian locked us out. Maya. She's punishing the kids again. This is why some people die alone. My cousin Sarah DM'd me. You good? I wrote, Yes. Finally. When Evan came home, he dropped his backpack and said, There are like 5 missed calls from Grandma. We had a disagreement, I said. Adult stuff. He studied me. Is it about me? It's about money, I said. You are not a problem. You are the reason I have a spine. He smiled one corner of his mouth. Can we make grilled cheese? Yes, I said, and then we can look at that robotics scholarship Miss Hall emailed you about. He said, Okay, and turned on the stove like the house wasn't on fire, and I wasn't standing in the kitchen with a heart that felt bruised. The next week was loud. Mom tried everything. Angry texts, guilty voicemails, then practical ones. Could I front the twins' tuition like before? Could I spot Dan for the truck? Could I just temporarily restore my view access so we can submit numbers for FAFSA? I didn't reply to most. When I did, I wrote short, clear sentences. No, I'm not doing that. Please stop asking. Maya put up a Facebook post about family who abandon you when you need them. She tagged me. I didn't react. Aunt Celia called and said, You know your mother. She's dramatic. Just let her see it. I said, No. There was a long pause, and then Aunt Celia said quietly, Good for you. The twins didn't go to a fancy camp. Maya sent me a picture of them on the couch. She wrote, Look at what you did. I stared at it in the grocery store parking lot and felt sad. Then I thought, I didn't do that. I didn't make your budget. I put my son's money in a place it always should have been. I put the phone down and went inside for milk. Evan and I got organized. We opened an actual 529 with me as owner and him as beneficiary. I set a small automatic transfer. It wasn't much, but it was a plan. We sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. and researched scholarships he could apply for in junior year. He got a part-time job shelving books at the library. He came home smelling like dust and said, "It's quiet there. I like it." Mom tried a new angle. She invited us to dinner. No mention of money. "Just come. Let's be a family." We went. Because I don't want to teach Evan to hold grudges. After dessert, she said casually, "So, show me how you set up that UTMA for the twins. You know, I'll mirror it." My stomach dropped, and even though she had timed it when Evan was in the living room, I saw what she was doing. "No," I said. "I'm not your financial manager." She frowned. "Vivian, you know about this stuff." "I know about my stuff. You need to hire someone or take a class or ask your bank." She blinked. "You're being mean." "I'm being clear. You tried to borrow from Evan's future. That doesn't make you the person I want to partner with on anything financial." Maya snorted. "Oh my God. Lady Boss makes a boundary." I shrugged. "Yep." We left early. In the car, Evan said, "Grandma asked you for help, setting up the same thing you did for me." That's wild," he said. He looked out the window and then said, "I'm proud of you." My eyes stung. "Thanks, kid." A week later, Mom texted a longer message. It was almost an apology. "I shouldn't have said what I said. I don't think Evan is a joke. I was careless. I was thinking about the twins. They need me. I've always had to help Maya more." She didn't mention the account directly, but she said, "We should find a way to be a team again." I wrote back, "We can be a family, not a financial team. You don't speak about my son's future like that again. If you want to see him, you show up, you cheer him on, and you respect my boundaries." She sent a thumbs up, then a heart, then a K. Evan's robotics team made it to regionals. Mom came. She sat on the bleachers and clapped. She brought the twins. At one point, she leaned over and said, "He's really good at this." I nodded. I didn't say, "I told you so." I didn't say anything. I just watched my kid be happy. And I kept my hands on my own lap, where they could not transfer money or permission I didn't owe. A month later, Mom asked me for coffee. We sat at a corner table. She looked tired. She said, "I've been thinking. I got scared. I used to fix things with money. I forgot it wasn't all mine to fix. I'm trying to do better." "I appreciate you saying that," I said. I did. I also kept my guard up. She asked, "Can we put past stuff behind us?" "We can move forward," I said, "but not back to the way it was. Here are my rules. You don't get access to my accounts. You don't touch anything with Evan's name. You don't shame him or steer him according to your budget. You can love him and cheer him. You can help if you want, but you don't get a vote." She nodded slowly. "Okay. Then, do you think we'll be okay?" "I think we will be different," I said. When I left the coffee shop, I texted Evan a picture of a nearby college flyer in the window. He sent back a grinning selfie from the library with a stack of books taller than his head. He wrote, "I got the robotics scholarship application. Miss Hall said my essay is good." I stood on the sidewalk and breathed. For the first time in a long time, the air didn't feel heavy. The moral is boring, but real. If someone shows you that their budget for you is zero, set your access to zero. Family is not an excuse to erase your child's future. My son is not a community piggy bank. He is a person, and I am his.